How many mint juleps you're going to drink this weekend?
Can I set a market on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yes,
before I literally was going to say, Jay, can you set a line for me?
And then Drew.
So purely just the weekend. So let's make that Saturday, Sunday. Let's say 12.5 each. We'll round up 25.5 for the weekend.
Ooh, boy, I'm going to take the under on that. Although I did hear, with the news that Matthew Berry was going to be here, they have got extra reserves of Woodford reserves. So, I think under, though.
They also brought more chicken.
Fantastic. I don't work tomorrow. I'm part of Saturday's coverage, but the Oaks, I'm here all day.
Markets on the
so
move.
if we include Friday and the weekend, give me the over. Pound the over.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rogers alongside Matthew Berry and Jay Croucher. We are back from the Kentucky Derby. Did the over hit, Matthew Berry?
The over did hit. What I will tell you is that I think what was missing in your calculation
Julep
is Julep King, thank you very much, is that when you get to the Kentucky Derby, the way it works, which I did not realize, is that basically your ticket is sort of all-inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't actually have to pay for drinks, like you sort of just walk up and order one.
Sure.
And so...
Hold on. Is that true for everyone?
Yeah, I believe so.
It depends on the ticket, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Club access
I'm going to take the under on this.
Right,
yeah.
No, I mean, like, we
You're
were...
there on the broadcast. I think it's different for you.
Maybe, but I mean, my wife and I were actually we were done with the broadcast, and I was done with my part, and I had like about a half hour before the actual Kentucky Derby. I made my pick, Angel of Empire, finished third. Only one of us had Mage, which is Dale Jr. Shout out to Dale Earnhardt Jr. of the 18 of us that made a pick. But at least one of my guys finished third. Angel of Empire, at least showed. Some people had picks that were like dead last, At any rate, so I make my pick, and my wife and I are now trying to go to a place where we're going to go watch the Derby, right, where our seats are. And so we're like we didn't want to go to the quote, the club section that had the free drinks. And so we were just like on like the main level. And I'm just like, why don't we'll just go grab a drink? And so I'm there and I order my drinks and order drinks for my wife. And I say, what do I owe you? And the woman's like, it's included, it's free. We just work for tips. So we gave him a nice tip and off we went. So I'm pretty sure it's included in the ticket. The ticket the Kentucky Derby ticket is not cheap.
Okay.
So I think they figure that into it.
Yeah. Connor and I were connecting through Atlanta.
Yeah. We missed
we
this.
wouldn't know.
Yeah. We're at whatever the restaurant is
we were
called.
watching Panthers hockey on our phone while we were out, mint juleping.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
like
chicken and waffles.
You had a good time?
I had an
Airport security looked fun.
Yeah. Sunday was brutal. Sunday, I had an amazing time.
Rare win for us.
It was my first Kentucky Derby. I had an absolute blast. My wife had an absolute blast. It was one of those things that we weren't sure what to expect. And now we're never missing this again. We're coming back every year. Even if NBC is like, no, we're good with,
You'll send yourself.
We're sent 100%. It was magical. They do a great job there. It's just sort of it's an incredible spectacle. The races are exciting. The people watching is incredible.
It really is.
It's just the atmosphere. And there is and this may sound surprising to some people, but coming from a curmudgeonly East Coast guy, I was so impressed with the Southern hospitality. It is a real thing, and so many people were not just in the, among the, but, everyone that worked at the Derby, everyone that I met could not have been more kind or gracious or welcoming and, and just out and about in the city of Louisville as well. So just an unbelievable time. It was great. I wish you guys had better agents and you didn't have to leave Thursday night. So it's a shame.
It's funny because we have the same agent. That's what makes the joke really good.
This is actually true.
Tough scene for Josh.
Connor and I do have the same agent. Shout out to Josh Levy.
Makes the joke really good.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Look, I think it goes to show, who Josh Levy likes and who Josh 100%. Levy does
the priority rankings are a little different.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Kay Adams was flitting about there. She was there. She's a Josh Levy client.
100%.
1,000%.
Connor and I had a great time at the airport in Atlanta.
Yeah, there you go.
Plenty of food options.
Yeah,
You get to take the air train to many terminals.
I think it's great to know. We have other rankings coming up later in the show, but we'll do this at some point. We'll break down the Josh Levy power rankings and just where you are on the list.
It's very easy because you can slot me in towards the bottom, and you can slot you towards the top, and then fill out the middle.
Yeah, fill out the middle.
So
there you go.
we have a similar exercise today. We are doing a Dynasty Superflex Rookie Draft. We're doing 2 rounds of that. Before we get there, though, a ton of Roto World headlines to get through. Kind of a weird year in the NFL calendar as it is schedule release week, but a lot of transactional moves going on as well. But let's start elsewhere as ESPN's Elena Getzenberg believes, and this is something we talked about when he was drafted, she believes the Bills will use tight end Dalton Kincaid, their first-round pick, more like a wide receiver this season. As soon as he got drafted, I feel like the reaction from this desk was, well, this is their new slot receiver.
1,000%. Like, they're just reporting what we've already said.
Yeah.
But, I mean, thank you. Like, kudos to us. Like, I'm patting myself on the back.
Yes.
No, but in all seriousness, we said this on draft night when we talked about it. We talked about this, Connor, that you felt like Dalton Kincaid had the best hands in the draft. That this was a guy. He's not a blocking tight end.
Not at all. No.
Right. So we talked about his ability to catch the ball. No tight end had more receptions last year than Dalton Kincaid. And you think about the Buffalo Bills, where they got the ghost of Cole Beasley off his couch last year because they were so desperate for slot production. Right. I mean, they lost Jamison Crowder in the preseason last year. Only 7 teams in the NFL had more targets to the slot than the Buffalo Bills. They were 8th in slot targets, and now 78 slot targets are available. As you see sort of the names there on your screen. So I think Kincaid suddenly becomes really interesting because he qualifies at tight end. He's going to a high-octane offense that likes to pass to the slot. I think I don't know that he's right there as a top 10, but like if you draft a second tight end, like all of a sudden he becomes really interesting and he sort of vaults to the top of tight end premium dynasty leagues.
Yeah, and I think as well that they just need to diversify their offense outside of Stephon Diggs too. I think we saw last season, particularly in the games against me and Connor's Jets, when Sauce Gardner was on Stephon Diggs and Diggs just got taken out, particularly the second game. The Bills just didn't really have anything else to do because Gabe Davis was banged up, and so now they get another option, and he should be used if he's good enough.
Right. You think about Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, especially a healthy Gabe Davis. Remember, we talked about the fact that he had that high ankle sprain for much of last year that limited his production. So another year of Gabe Davis, now hopefully fully healthy. Stephon Diggs on the outside. You got Shakir in the slot as well. James Cook should have a bigger role. He's a nice pass-catching running back. And Dalton Kincaid. And all of a sudden, hey, what do you know? The Bills' offense is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Hashtag analysis.
Josh Allen allegedly not going to run as much. Like, we'll see if that happens. But
I don't believe.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. That I don't
When
believe.
it hits the fan, Josh Allen's going to run. Yeah. One more transactional move here for the Bills. They signed Latavius Murray to a 1-year contract. This backfield's suddenly very crowded. You have James Cook, who was a second-round pick 2 years ago. They also signed Damian Harris much earlier in the offseason. They traded for Naheem Hines last year. Now they signed Latavius Murray.
So many guys.
It's a lot of guys, but this feels like the depth move that probably concerns you the least, I would think.
It's a depth move. To me, it's more of a concern for Damian Harris. I don't know that both those guys make this team. I can't see Damian Harris and Latavius Murray playing special teams. You've got James Cook, and I feel like contractually they're sort of stuck with Hines. Like, I mean, I feel like he weirdly makes more money than you think he does. Like, I remember we showed a graphic earlier, and it was like
a top 10 paid running
back. Right, like
right?
he's making like $6 million a year, and I just don't know if they can get out of that. And so,
and he does play special teams,
right?
So that helps too.
Right.
Hines plays special teams. Why the rest of the guys don't?
So it just feels like with those 4 guys, like one of them is likely not making the team. Maybe. I mean, we'll see if this is depth, but again, feels like forgetting everything else. Just from a pure talent standpoint, James Cook is a step above all these guys. Like, I don't think it's particularly close. And so it does mean that maybe there's less touchdown equity for Cook because whether Harris or Murray are both really good around the goal line. But so it's more of a concern to me about James Cook's fantasy value than it is suddenly Latavius Murray is interesting.
Yeah, and I think with the Buffalo backfield, like all you want from a fantasy perspective is clarity for James Cook. That's the only thing that matters because you're not gonna get excited about Damian Harris or if Latavius Murray has a good game or Naeem Hines has a big game catching the ball. Like all you want is a clear lane for James Cook to the maximum usage, and this just clogs that further.
If he can get Devin Singletary's role from last year down the stretch where they used Singletary significantly, then it becomes interesting. So this is a story to watch, but I think this is actually, of all the potential landing spots for Murray, I actually think this is the worst because it is so crowded.
Another interesting running back room in the AFC. Bengals head coach Zach Taylor said Trayveon Williams could have a role in the team's backfield. When you look at this one, a little different from the Bills, we know there's Joe Mixon at the top. Everybody's looking at June 1st because after June 1st, they can save a lot of money on Joe Mixon's deal if they want to move on from him. After that, they drafted Chase Brown this year, really good athlete out of Illinois. Trayveon Williams, who obviously Zach Taylor is apparently high on, and Chris Evans here to round out this group where with Samaje Perine out the door here, Jay, there might be some opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Trayveon Williams clearly has talent and just the opportunity just for touchdowns. And this is the Bengals have the ultimate three-point shooting offense with a space floor for you to drive, basically. And so there's going to be huge equity and potential for any running back who seizes the role. And it just doesn't seem like Joe Mixon's going to be there.
I felt the same way. A lot of their quotes have been very odd about him in the offseason. He's on the team situation when you look at when the money can be freed up. So we'll wait and see on that one, but undoubtedly, whether it's Chase Brown or Trayveon Williams, somebody behind him is going to be able to carve out a role.
Yep.
Yeah, look, and this is a guy that I liked quite a bit coming out of Texas A&M.
One of your Aggies.
One of my Aggies as well. It's interesting because I remember being at the combine a couple of years ago, and because I have Trayveon Williams in one of my dynasty leagues, and because he's a Texas A&M guy, I was just like, hey, what do you think about Trayveon Williams? I was talking to the Bengals running back coach at the time. He's no longer on the team. The coaches, he's moved on. And he said, we love Trayveon Williams. This kid is so good in practice. And for whatever reason, whether it's because he got beat out by Samaje Perine, and then they drafted Evans, and just for whatever reason, Trayveon Williams has not been able to sort of crack the lineup, which is a little concerning because Zach Taylor's been there the whole time, and now he's talking him up, and he's like, well, yeah, I've had the dude for 3 or 4 years. Having said that, sure, there's an easy scenario to see a significant amount of playing time for Trayveon Williams. Now, if they let go of Joe Mixon, do they go out and sign a veteran? Ezekiel Elliott is still out there. Leonard Fournette is still out there. But the fact of the matter is there is one. To your point, in fantasy, we hope for clarity. We look for, fantasy success comes from opportunity and talent. I still believe Trayveon Williams has talent, and the Bengals are saying all the right things in the offseason. So is there opportunity? And given the June 1st potential cap casualty of Joe Mixon, there is a path to playing time. And even if Mixon comes back, that Samaje Perine role is still available.
I mean, it's kind of, maybe we haven't talked about it enough. It's one of the most random situations in the NFL from a fantasy perspective, in that the Bengals running back, the Bengals might have the best offense in football. That's on the cards, and they don't really have a running back necessarily at the moment. It's Joe Mixon by default, but Trayveon Williams could just slide in there, or just a random guy could slide in there and be a top 10 running back next year.
Another A&M running back in the news, Achane, taken by the Miami Dolphins. ESPN's Marcel Louis-Jacques wrote that Mike McDaniel lobbied heavily. That doesn't surprise anybody. What does Mike McDaniel want for his offense? Speed. What did Achane bring in this draft at the position? Some of the best speed at the running back spot. So for Miami, it's going to be interesting. Raheem Mostert's back, Jeff Wilson's back, but when those guys get hurt, or even if they don't, it feels like they'll scheme up some touches for Achane.
I love this landing spot for him dynasty-wise, and I think he's a great late-round flyer in redraft leagues this year. He's going to be third on the depth chart on what should still be a pass-first offense behind Mostert and Wilson. But to your point, both those guys have had significant injury issues over the last couple of years, and so the fact that McDaniel lobbied hard for Achane, he's a great fit for Miami. We talked about this draft night. I was thrilled with this landing spot for him. He's a kid that I root for, again, as a Texas A&M Aggie fan, as a guy that grew up in College Station. I like my Aggies, gig 'em. And Achane, I've watched a lot of his film over the years, and kid can play.
Yeah, and who else has got injury concerns is Tua Tagovailoa. So I wonder if they're going to run the ball a bit more this coming season, particularly now they've got 3 weapons. Jeff Wilson was really good when he got there, and Raheem Mostert had some incredible games. Think back to the late season game against Buffalo in particular, who's just running all over them.
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the show. And so Achane is certainly going to have a role. What's his ceiling this season, Connor? Can he be really fantasy relevant if he gets the opportunity?
I think he can, because he can hit the big play. That's the big thing with Achane. And if McDaniel's offense finds ways to get quick touches to the speed guys, and if you could do that with Achane, they used him honestly in college, as you know, in between the tackles a lot for a smaller running back. Maybe in the Miami offense, there's a little bit more open opportunities for him on screens, swing passes. So listen, when those guys get banged up, yeah, he's extremely relevant right away because of that big play element. And you bring up your point, Jay, about them running the ball a little bit more. Mike McDaniel really made his roots on being the run game coordinator under Kyle Shanahan for the Niners. So There
It's
might
a very,
be.
very Shanahan thing to do, take a running back in the 3rd round like this. I mean, who's his comp? Who's he most like in the league, would you say, Achane?
I had a throwback comp on him, Javid Best, who had a career-ending
like it.
injury
Deep cut.
situation, but when he played, he was explosive. I thought he was the same exact player, similar size, similar skill set. So a little bit of a throwback with Achane.
Cool. Like it.
All right, another one here, guys. Looking at the Bears, the Athletics, Adam Johns believes the Bears don't want a bell cow running back in the offense this season. Obviously, another crowded situation. They drafted Roschon Johnson this year, which a lot of people are very high on. They signed Deontay Foreman. They have Khalil Herbert back again. Travis Homer is a part of this backfield. And here's the thing, Barry. We know how much Justin Fields commands touches in the running game as well.
They don't want a bell cow running back, but the situation may be solved for them. The fact of the matter is that they may have to pick one, and they're going to be pretty run heavy. Like, again, they added DJ Moore, which is great. But this should still be a run-heavy team. This should still be, it's Chicago, it's cold weather, it's like all the cliches, right? I mean, you know, they improved the offensive line, which is big, and because of Fields' athleticism and his ability to run, that opens up things for the rest of the run game because you always have to keep a linebacker to spy on Fields, otherwise he's going to kill you. So I do think there's a scenario where, and again, there's 4 solid running backs there. But I do feel like there'll be some value from Foreman and Herbert. You know what I mean? Like, and if one of those guys kind of pops, like they're not going to keep him off the field. They're not going to be like, hey, sorry, I know Khalil Herbert, I know you're doing awesome, but too bad, we've got to get some touches for Foreman or Roschon Johnson. They're not going to do that. They're going to play the best players.
Yeah. I read this as good news for Roschon Johnson. The fact that there's no one established between Foreman and Herbert. They're not getting behind, Herbert's going to be the guy this year like we thought he might have been last season. I mean, Roschon Johnson, Connor, is he someone who could step in and, you know, be a 240 carry guy this season?
Easily. I mean, this was Bijan Robinson's backup. Any other program in the country, he's the starter. He has talent. Here's the thing with Roschon Johnson. He comes in ready in pass pro, so coaches will trust to get him on the field. He's got soft hands. He's tough downhill runner. I think they get into camp and look at him and go, maybe this guy's our best running back right now. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And to enhance your point, Barry, about them being a run team, they took a run-blocking, heavy right tackle with the 10th overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, that guy's a mauler. And the fact is that all these guys, I think Foreman, Herbert, and Johnson are all viable late-round flyers, right? Especially if you're doing best ball drafts right now. Like, they're all viable late-round flyers here. We've seen all these guys. We've seen Foreman have a lot of success. We've seen Herbert, when he got the run, when Montgomery was out, we've seen him have a lot of success in the NFL. And obviously, expectations are high for Johnson in this role. So, yeah, you know, I mean, it's one of those things that we'll wait to see. I do feel like at some point somebody will emerge.
Yep.
There's 3 good guys there.
Roschon Johnson, 35-1, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Wouldn't probably bet that now, but something to pay attention to out of camp if he kind of emerges as the guy.
I mean, at those odds, those are Hail Mary odds, and he's somebody that truly has the build to be a.
But I agree with you. He's got talented running backs before him, but there's no one that they've sort of planted their flag in, and so I think it will be sort of, you know, best guy, and we'll see if it's a bit of a committee. But I do think Chicago's going to be run heavy enough and a good enough offense that there will be some flex value in multiple running backs with the Bears.
More rookie news here. Our very own Peter King believes a slow start by the Titans could result in Will Levis starting for the team by November. Ryan Tannehill on an expiring contract. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill dealt with the ankle last year. But I'll say this. One, I don't think Will Levis is even close to being ready to play.
Right.
Yeah.
2, Ryan Tannehill's not bad when healthy.
I don't understand why people don't like Ryan Tannehill.
I don't get it either.
Ryan Tannehill's like the 15th best quarterback in the league or something.
And
like,
sometimes
he's
better,
fine.
honestly.
He took them to a 1 seed when Derrick Henry missed half the season. Like, Ryan Tannehill is good. I just don't
And by
understand
the way,
why they don't like
other
him.
than A.J. Brown, name one viable wide receiver he's ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, other than A.J. Brown, like he's just been out there with a bunch of like also rans.
Russell
and so,
Westbrook, Achane.
Right. I mean, right. Exactly. I mean, honestly,
speaks volumes.
I mean, no, seriously, the ghost of Robert Wood last year. I mean, they just so. Yeah, I don't get that. I look, Peter's as plugged in as any person in the NFL that's been covering. So I don't doubt that there's some truth to this. Like there's some smoke to that fire, but it does seem like that would be it would have to be a complete catastrophe. And when you think about the AFC South, like we think the Colts will be better, we're expecting good things out of the Jaguars, but there's not a team where you feel like, well, they're running away with that division.
No.
You know, the Titans play good enough defense and they run the ball well enough that they're going to be and Mike Vrabel's a good enough coach. It's hard to see a scenario where it's November and they're, they're 2-7. It's just hard to see that scenario.
I think they've pretty clearly got the best defense in the division and the second best quarterback in the division when you think you're not going to expect much out of Indy and Houston quarterbacks this season. So also, there's like Malik Willis. Does he exist still? Is he just a complete write-off? Like, why is he still on the team?
To them, it feels like he doesn't.
Yes. I mean, honestly, like that to me, that's much more of like dirt on the water of Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Or dirt on the grave, I guess. I don't know. Water on the flower. I don't know. I mix metaphors.
Boy. Yeah,
I'm,
the juleps.
I had 26 of them.
The over did hit, Jay.
The over did hit. Whatever.
So
it just
free,
feels like
apparently. Maybe.
The fact is that it just with Malik Willis, understand that it's a new regime, right? It's a brand new general manager, and it does feel like them trading up into the second round to go get Will Levis is kind of like a way for them to say, like, we're waving the white flag on Malik Willis. We just don't think he's ever going to get there. To me, that's what this report is that it's not like, hey, if things are going south and we have to totally tear it down and rebuild, it'll be Willis or Levis. The report is it's going to be Levis.
What's your rate on Malik Willis? Did you like him coming out of the draft? What did you see from him last season?
I didn't think he was a first-round caliber quarterback, but I liked enough tools where you take him and develop him. I think for the Titans, there's a situation where he could have been thrusted into playing, and he's not ready to play.
Yeah.
And he's a smaller quarterback that was an older prospect, but electric runner with a big arm, and you see what happens with guys like that. And for the Titans, they don't really seem interested in seeing what happens with a guy like that.
I mean, it is worth noting that like they were in a playoff. You know, they needed to beat the Jaguars to make the playoffs, and they decided to sign Josh Jobs, who they signed off a practice squad 3 weeks earlier to start that game than Malik Willis, who'd been in camp and been in the building the entire year.
Listen, Malik Willis did a great job handing the ball off to Derrick Henry against the Texans for 220 yards. Great job.
This is factually correct.
ESPN's David Newton writes, the goal is to get Miles Sanders back to where he was as a rookie in 2019 when he caught 50 passes. Barry, obviously a lot of opportunity for Miles Sanders now on the Panthers. This feels a little lofty, no?
He's had under 30 receptions and under 200 receiving yards each of the past 3 seasons. He ranked last. This is incredible, guys. Last year, Miles Sanders ranked last among running backs in yards per reception and yards per target among running backs with at least 25 targets. Like, there wasn't one running back worse than Sanders in those categories in the NFL. And by the way, the other weird thing here is that, like, Chuba Hubbard's a nice pass-catching running back. Yeah. Now, and so he's a nice pass-catching running back. Now, I get it, because Carolina, like, they're sitting there like, well, if he doesn't throw the running back, who's he thrown to? You know, Adam Thielen, DJ Shark, like Jonathan Mingo. Like, there's not, you know, it's not like a lot of guys that are going to command targets for the Panthers, but it just feels like you didn't draft Bryce Young to dump it off to the running back. This one feels like off-season, like sort of, you know, like on my old show we used to do sort of like a, you know, news or noise.
Yeah.
And this feels like noise.
Yeah. I'm already excited for your tweets, Matthew, about Raheem Blackshear vulturing touchdowns from Miles Sanders, because you know that's coming.
I throw my mint julep against the wall. Very upset. Look forward to seeing him out there.
Definitely.
All right, IndyCar Series 2023, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. IndyCar's most exciting month of racing starts with the Indy Grand Prix Saturday at 3 Eastern Time on NBC and Peacock.
By the way, that's right. Look at the milk.
There it is.
You don't often see milk in a bar, but you know what? We're company men.
I've heard some rumors.
I thought you'd be a White Russian kind of operator.
Yeah. I mean, well, we can do a White Russian. Yeah, exactly.
You have 2 of them.
Little rounders.
The tummy
little rounders. Yeah.
It's not great. You don't have like once I had a night of just, I'm just going to drink White Russians all night. I have like 12 White Russians.
That's not going to be
the hostel in
like
Vietnam. Wasn't great.
Why am I blanking out?
It's at a hostel in Vietnam.
Yeah, the Trang. It's a big Russian town.
Why am I? Big Lebowski. I was like, what's the? I've become the Big LeBarry. Just call me the dude. The dude does abide. I will say that, maybe next week I'll drink some milk.
Chug.
I'll chug.
I've just heard rumors.
The milkman.
I'm gonna,
the milkman, yes.
The
that's
milkman,
right, Jay.
Exactly. Similar to the mailman.
That's bad.
All right. What are we doing now, Connor? Get us
We
back
got
on track.
What's the milkman up to next?
Steer back on the highway. We have a Dynasty Superflex Rookie Draft, and we're obviously going to start with round 1. Us 3 are alternating picks here. This is going to be this is a lot of fun because this is a good way to break down the value of the rookie class. Hopefully a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
But for clarity, For clarity, this is
Jay, did it seem like Connor felt like it was just saying that?
It's a
Didn't
fun.
really feel like it was a lot of
I'm
fun.
gonna take the under on fun.
Yeah.
Under 0.5 fun.
Under 0.5 on fun.
After that.
So, what I did at the Kentucky Derby, I interviewed the last year's Indy 500 winner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Marcus Ericsson.
What'd you ask?
Asking about milk?
I did not ask him about milk. I asked him about about his Derby experiences. I asked him who he liked in the Derby. I also asked him. I thought this was a good question. Because the Indy 500 is a race unlike any other, and he won that one. And the Kentucky Derby is a horse race like any other. Like, what advice would he give to the jockeys in terms of racing in this race versus all the other races they've done in their lives? And so he gave a very thoughtful answer there.
Oh, lovely.
So that's what I thought that was a good answer. I thought that was a good question.
You just said good luck. That's it.
What?
You just said he gave a thoughtful answer, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, I had like a minute. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. This is not 60 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, they're moving on.
A sit down at the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly like, I'm not suddenly Roy Firestone at the Kentucky Derby. Like, hey.
Very stern.
Yeah, exactly. Let me. I'm not. Whatever.
All right, should I make the first pick?
Yes. Our Dynasty Superflex Rookie Draft. For those that don't play in a Dynasty Superflex, it's 2 quarterbacks, so the value on quarterbacks is at a premium.
No, hang on for a second.
Oh, boy.
Let me explain this.
Yes.
All
right.
Right.
Milkman has the floor.
Because saying a Superflex is 2 quarterbacks is not enough.
Well, by the way, because it's not. A Superflex means you have the ability to play 2 quarterbacks. A Superflex league is, in essence, you're playing a quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 or 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and then usually like 4 flexes, one of whom can be a quarterback. So again, that's usually how a Superflex works. The ideal scenario is that you're starting 2 quarterbacks,
Yes.
but it's right is that
You're in
you
big
want
trouble
to,
if you're not,
right.
I'd say.
But my point is, it's not. There is a 2 quarterback league is technically different than a Superflex league. We are also, by the way, dynasty leagues. If you're not in one, please join one.
Yeah, it's the best.
It is awesome.
Yep.
They're amazing. Really, really fun. But what I will tell you is that every dynasty league is different. So what we've chosen for this exercise is a super flex using PPR scoring and just rookies. Now, again, as we sort of go through this and we talk about this, the idea is that, like, I'm a big believer in, because it's dynasty, I'm less worried about team role and more about just the talent of the player. Again, we saw it with Breece Hall last year. We saw it with Ken Walker. People were concerned about the landing spot, and obviously both ended up fine till Hall got injured. But it is worth noting that so we're doing this based on ours, but your rules might be different and everything like that. And so I prefer to. In this particular case, like if you're in a league where you have to play 4 wide receivers, team need, meaning your fantasy team need, might take precedence over quote-unquote talent.
Sure.
Jay, you had the number 1 pick, and listen, there hasn't been much of a debate around this in any dynasty
Don't screw
drafts.
this up.
Yeah, I'm taking Bijan Robinson with the first pick. This wasn't difficult. I think the big question is, in redraft, does Bijan maybe go 1, 2 in redraft? Honestly,
I don't think he goes that high, and I think it's Bijan. I don't think it's Bijan.
Bijan.
Like
the French pronunciation.
No.
To
the
pronounce the
Provence.
R in Robinson.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
another conversation for another day.
I think with
You know
Bijan,
what's amazing is,
What is, Matthew?
most people that come from another country do butcher the English language, but you're Australian.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like you're coming over from France or Italy or something like that. In essence, you have the same language as us.
yeah, my wife, who's not Australian, she's from Sweden. She was making fun of me last night at dinner ordering the Sangiovese, which apparently is not how you say that one either.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Sangiovese. Anyway, Bijan Robinson. I just think Tyler Algier had, 1,100 rushing yards last year behind an amazing run-blocking offensive line, a coach with a religious commitment to running the ball
Obsession.
in a bad division where Bijan, I think, is just going to get just an incredible amount of usage. He's got the talent. Past 20 years, 3 best running back prospects: Adrian Peterson, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson.
I would say so, and I think Bijan might even be better than Saquon.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the other thing too, I've had a bet on Bijan Robinson to win Offensive Player of the Year, not rookie, Offensive Player of the Year at 60-1.
Wow.
I just think that this guy could win the rushing title, could have 2,000 yards from scrimmage on a team that could win the division just because it's a bad division. So yeah, Bijan was number 1, not difficult for me.
And the other thing that I think will get talked about with Bijan Robinson as we get closer, but isn't been talked about really right now, is the fact that he's so versatile in the passing game. Like, there's a scenario where it's not just like, oh, this guy's really good and he's going to get 25 carries a game. Like, they could, and I think they will, use him the way that they used Cordero Patterson the last 2 years, especially 2 years ago when Patterson was kind of a fantasy superstar. He's running long. I mean, he's running fly routes. You know, he's running slot passes. They're also giving it to him at the goal line. I mean, like, he's basically Cordero Patterson, just younger and better and faster and more versatile. I mean, like, so I think, you know, Bijan Robinson should be very special. No issue with the pick there.
There hasn't been a lot of debate at number 1, but there has been some
I will
debate
say
at number 2.
I will say I am in a dynasty rookie draft at the moment, and the person who had pick 1 is a well-known fantasy analyst. Did not take Bijan Robinson 1.
Took Anthony Richardson.
Took Anthony
I've heard
Richardson.
a little bit of this.
Yeah, took Anthony Richardson, who's I'm going to take here at pick 2. Again, I just think Dynasty quarterbacks are so important. In Dynasty, you're thinking about not just this year, but you're thinking about, you know, the future. There's a wide range of outcomes for Anthony Richardson, probably a wider range of outcomes than there are for Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. But for me, the ceiling is what's important here. Richardson has a scenario where he's the best player in fantasy in 3 years. Like, I mean, that's within the range of outcomes. And so I think that upside is worth it. I like the fact that he's going to the Colts with a good, like, he's not going to a team that has to completely rebuild. There's pieces around him already. So it's just a matter of getting him up to NFL speed. So give me Anthony Richardson at 2.
Was that drafter you were talking about very quarterback desperate, or they just loved the player?
They both. They were quarterback. I think both quarterback player. I haven't talked to the particular person about why they drafted Anthony Richardson over Bijan Robinson. They're definitely quarterback desperate, but at the time not as. At the time they had Herbert and Carr, so not like crazy, not crazy quarterback desperate. They ended up trading Herbert later, but yeah, I mean it was a team that was drafting first for a reason. So they had needs all over the place. If I was in charge of that team, I'd have drafted Bijan Robinson.
So at number 3, I took Bryce Young, premium on quarterback here. I look at Bryce Young and think, listen, they don't have the weapons yet for him to have this kind of production, but Joe Burrow is what you hope he can be from a production standpoint. He's not going to run a lot. He's an excellent thrower. He's very accurate. He's a highly efficient player. He can extend plays. It doesn't mean he's a runner, but he can scramble and extend plays. Carolina doesn't have the passing weapons yet for him to explode, but this is a pick where you think in year 3 he could be one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. So I was pretty content with Bryce Young at 3.
Yep.
I think in a Superflex league, you're going quarterback heavy in rookies, especially with guys like, you know, with Young. Stroud should come off the board here fairly soon. And then, you know, obviously Richardson as well. The only thing I'll just say here, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on Bryce Young. Sorry, I was just going to say is let's, like, as we continue the draft, the premises here is not that we're doing a 3-man draft. Like, in essence, it's Jay's pick now, and you're going to be drafting the first pick for Team 4, not the second pick for Team 1.
Yep. And so given that, did think about C.J. Stroud at 4 because of the premium on quarterbacks and Superflex, so I went Jahmyr Gibbs. And the reason why is just that I think, I mean, you can speak to this better than I can, Connor, but in terms of pass-catching running backs entering the draft, I mean, he could be Christian McCaffrey, and there's not many people that you can say that about. So I particularly think as well with the team fit, I think with running backs, it's more important as well for Dynasty to focus on more the immediate, because you just don't know what these guys are going to be in 4 or 5 years, because just projecting out that far with running backs is fraught with peril. So he goes to an amazing situation. Clearly they believe in him. If you saw the reaction in the draft room from Dan Campbell, they move on DeAndre Swift. David Montgomery's presence is kind of annoying, but at the same time, Gibbs' talent, I think, is such that he's going to be a weapon from day one.
Yeah, it's a PPR league, and I think his usage will be the same as Alvin Kamara's within 2 years. So I think this is a great pick.
I mean, Swift finished as a top 15 fantasy running back and had at least 45 receptions each of the last 3 years, despite missing time, despite not playing a ton of snaps. And so the role is amazing there. It also depends on sort of, again, as we talked about, team need. Like, we're doing a rookie draft, but we haven't determined is this a startup rookie draft, or is this just like, you know, a rookie draft for an established, long-standing? So, right, if I was like a team that, you know, felt really good about my quarterback situation, I had good young quarterbacks, and I'm in a win-now mode, I would take Gibbs over Stroud too. I have no issue with that, right? But I do think that if we were doing just a pure startup, I would probably take Stroud over Gibbs. I prefer in Dynasty quarterbacks and wide receivers over running backs, just because obviously the longevity of their career. But now I'm picking for the first pick for Team 5, and I will take C.J. Stroud. Again, we think probably the most, it depends on where you sit on Bryce Young. He's obviously off the table here. But either before or after Bryce Young, the most pro-ready quarterback coming out this year. Houston has a better offensive line than you think. They're trying to get him some weapons. It's going to be a little bit of a tough sledding there with his pass catchers. We have high hopes for Tank Dell. Maybe Nico Collins can emerge. They do have Dalton Schultz there. They should have a good run game with Pierce and company. But I'm betting on the front office and a new regime in Houston to build around C.J. Stroud. So, given the fact that everyone else that's off the table, Richardson and Young especially, give me C.J. Stroud.
So the top 3 quarterbacks are gone, not surprising there, and the top 2 running backs are gone as well. Guys, this is where I just go talent. I went with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He was my number 1 wide receiver. It was a no-brainer for me at number 6. I did my first Dynasty draft of the year last night. I got him at number 7. I was very surprised by that. So he's, in my opinion, being slept on at this point because people are looking at DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in the now. And in Dynasty, that is the worst outlook to have with him when you think JSN is probably their number 2 wide receiver within 2 to 3 years instead, and a valuable slot piece now. Barry, I know you are very high on JSN in your rookie rankings this year as well.
Talented kid who's got a quarterback here. And to your point, I mean, look, they threw to the slot a lot last year. I mean, usually that was Tyler Lockett. So, but I think JSN, right? Again, we talk about longevity. Give me, I think you got a steal here. I think Team 6 got a steal here. Again, it's Superflex, so you want the quarterbacks here, but. In a startup, I would have taken JSN over Gibbs. Just again the longevity of wide receiver versus a running back here. So, he's got a quarterback and some older wide receivers around him. There's not 2 years from now, if we're talking about the fact JSN is the leading receiver on the Seahawks, it wouldn't shock me.
Yep. Pick 7, Wade up. Jordan Addison versus Quentin Johnston. Ultimately went with Addison. I just prefer the context a little bit more. I think that he'll be more productive from the get-go. I think that the Vikings offense should be better than it was last year. I don't think it quite produced at the talent level that it had. You love being opposite Justin Jefferson. Just means that you're never going to get double covered in Minnesota. Also, I think their offensive line is stronger than people might give them credit for. When Christian Darrisaw was out there, they did have a good offensive line for the first time in a long time for Kirk Cousins. So just like Addison's context, like the talent, and I picked him at 7.
Yeah, you know what? Which is nice, because you nailed the first pick. You screwed up the second one, but you came back strong. And Addison, I think, was the correct pick there.
Okay.
So well done.
Matthew.
I agree with you. Again, over 100 targets vacated by Adam Thielen. He should have a role immediately. It's an offensive-minded coach. It's an offensive-minded system. He's also got a good quarterback there. We'll see if KJ Osborne takes the next step here. But to me, Addison should be the number 1 wide after JSN. Should be the number 1 wide receiver in both redraft and dynasty. So I think you nailed that correctly. So with those 2 guys gone, I agree with you. Your pick should have been between Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston. You took Addison. So that leaves me with Johnston. Look, last year, both Keenan Allen and Mike Williams missed 11 games. Combined, they missed 11 games. Both guys, Keenan Allen's on the wrong side of 30. Mike Williams has suffered, injuries throughout his career. And Quentin Johnston, who's just a big, tall, vertical threat, is, again, you talk about pairing with a quarterback. Does he have someone, landing in a spot with what we expect to be a good offense? I'm a Kellen Moore fan. I like Kellen Moore, and so getting Johnston in there, I don't know how much production he's going to have this year as long as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are healthy, but I do think it's a great landing spot for him. Justin Herbert's he's a superstar and he's young, and so they're going to grow together. This is great.
Yep.
Pick number 9, I took our first tight end off the board and went with Dalton Kincaid. It's just the fact how we opened the show, a special pass catcher in terms of
I didn't think you were
tight
paying
end.
attention at the top of the show. I was hoping you would sneak back around to me. But
No,
thanks.
I know.
You were actually paying attention.
Oh,
All right.
absolutely.
So Jay's the only one that doesn't listen?
That's
there's no doubt.
actually correct.
Right,
Yes.
okay, good.
I'm always locked in.
Robinson. Yeah.
Dalton Kincaid at number 9 because you are probably getting potential receiver usage and production at a position that it's hard to find right now, Barry. That's how I looked at this. Kincaid's got great hands. He's a good red zone threat. He's a good, really short intermediate threat as well. So if the Bills, he could really be the Bills' number 2 pass catcher, and we're not that far away from that. Maybe not as a rookie, but we're not far away from that. So I tried to get some distinction at the tight end position by taking him this early.
And by the way, this league is not tight end premium, but if it was, a lot of dynasty leagues are tight end premium where you get 1.5 points per reception for tight ends versus just 1 for other pass catchers. But if it was tight end premium, you could make an argument for him a couple spots higher. Like, I probably still would take JSN over him, but you could make an argument for him ahead of Addison and Johnston.
Yep, agreed. At 10, weighed up between Devon Achane and Zach Charbonnet. Went with Achane in the end, more of a home run swing for a home run player. Just kind of believe in the Dolphins' infrastructure a little bit more than Seattle. And the main thing is that just believe in not having Ken Walker there. And I think that Achane has more of a path to kind of premium usage in front of Mostert and Wilson, who I don't think are going to be there in 2-3 years, you would expect. So Achane was the pick there for me. We know Mike McDaniel loves him.
Yeah, I was actually hoping Achane would fall to me. I was hoping you were going to take Charbonnet, so I would get Achane. But look, I've already said it throughout the show. I love me some Devon Achane. Like, absolutely love him. And I'm annoyed because I think the hype on him is going to keep putting him up draft boards. But certainly, he lands in a great situation with a coach who desperately wanted him. And there's, to your point, there's a clearer path to playing time given the injury history of Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. So it's now to me at pick 11. So first pick for Team 11, and I will go Zach Charbonnet. We talked about this, like on draft night. You immediately think, like, I can't believe he's going there with Ken Walker. And then you're like, well, you look a little bit closer, and a lot of Ken Walker's production came on big runs. Like, if you take out those big runs, it doesn't look as rosy. He had the lowest success rate among running backs with over 100-plus carries last season, right? I mean, again, like, it's just like he either ran for 65 yards or, like, -2. And so Walker, who for whatever reason they didn't seem to really trust in the third down passing down role. Like, he played on less than 30% of third downs. And, you know, even though Travis Homer is now in Chicago, they still have DJ Dallas. Charbonnet's a better pass catcher than Ken Walker, I think. And so there's a chance, Pete Carroll's already come out and said, like, it's going to be a battle to be who the guy is. So this is more of a bet on talent, love Charbonnet's talent, than it is landing spot. Again, the example I gave, Breece Hall, everyone was like, Jets, bad offensive line, bad offense, Michael Carter's there, this is the worst landing spot ever. And then, you know, he probably would have been a top 5 fantasy running back had he stayed healthy the full year.
Yep.
And the reality is you're one more Kenneth Walker injury away from having one of the best pieces in the fantasy landscape at running back.
Correct.
Charbonnet. That Seattle offensive line is going to be really, really good. I'll close out round 1 for us here and go back to tight end with Michael Mayer. I just valued him too highly in this draft. Great red zone threat. He's caught 16 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. He was a possession monster. Once again, this would really dictate where your roster is at if this wasn't a startup league. If you needed a tight end, though, I think Mayer is a future top 6 tight end in the league fantasy-wise because of his possession and red zone ability. So I valued him in round 1 here to close things out.
Yep.
We will recap first-round picks right here. Obviously, Jay started us off with Bijan Robinson. Barry took Anthony Richardson, number 2 overall, very popular theme with his rushing ability and ceiling. I went with Bryce Young. Jay went back to the running back well with Jahmyr Gibbs for team number 4. Barry took Stroud, number 5, and then I got Jaxon Smith-Njigba, our first wide receiver off the board at number 6. The second half of round 1, team number 7, Jay had them going Jordan Addison. Barry went Quentin Johnston as our run on wide receivers continued. Our first tight end off the board was Dalton Kincaid with his receiving ability. And then the next tier of running backs began with Devon Achane sneaking into the top 10. Zach Charbonnet even sharing that backfield with Kenneth Walker for now, still going in the first round, and Michael Mayer at 12 to team number 12. We will do the second round in just one moment, but before we do, a reminder to be sure to tune in tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern to catch the full 2023 season schedule release. You can find it on NFL Network, NFL Plus, and of course right here on Peacock. All right, guys, round 2, and I get to kick things off in round 2. And this is the one where I had the least amount of confidence in, but the value in Superflex and knowing he's going to get a chance to be the starter at some point, and he does have some red zone running ability, I took Will Levis off the board here. I'm taking Will Levis off the board here.
You don't like Will Levis that much, though, do you?
It's tricky, right?
He's a project.
He's a project. I don't even believe in the upside a lot of people believe in. But the fact of having a future starting quarterback that can run in the red zone, that's kind of what pushed me over here a little bit. Not last year, but in 2021, he was a very good runner in terms of his rush production at college. It's hard to let Will Levis fall further than this.
I mean, the NFL did. I mean,
round two here, round two in the NFL.
Yeah, that's fair. It's only 12 picks.
He's in a room somewhere.
Yeah.
Now Will Levis, waiting for his name to be called.
Exactly. He's in the green room here. He'll come out here, with a new girlfriend.
Not again.
With a new girlfriend.
The
first one left. Yeah, she was around one girlfriend.
First rounders only.
Will Levis is in the friend zone now. Sorry, honey, you went to the second round. Look, don't hate the pick. Don't
cop that, John.
Yeah.
Jimmy Gibbs pick gets pilloried. Will Levis.
It's just like my feeling is like what's his ceiling? So again, it's just sort of super flex. So you're desperate for quarterbacks, and he qualifies a quarterback. Like that's a positive thing you can say. But like, what's the fantasy ceiling? Like the best case scenario for Will Levis is what he becomes. Ryan Tannehill. He becomes like a mid-tier QB2. Like I'm serious. Like
matters in super flex a lot. I think so. Yeah.
But that's my point. You know what I mean? Like, he's the best case scenario for him fantasy-wise, I think, is he's usable. Yeah. He's Jimmy Garoppolo, right? He's Matt Ryan, without Kyle Shanahan. He's kind of like he's in that range, right? He's like that kind of he's like fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. He's 260, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Every week. Like it's like okay.
We love that as a second QB.
Yes.
Yeah. What?
I think that's fine, right?
I'd be really happy about that if I drafted him in the second round in Dynasty. Because now we're getting to this is the dart throw part of the draft for me.
I don't know.
The thing is, like after this year, looking at guys who you're probably hoping become like wide receiver 2s and that kind of range.
It's not a deep draft. It's not a deep draft in terms of potential fantasy superstars. So I get it. It's fine. I'm just saying like.
All right, noted.
He qualifies a quarterback. That's what you can say nicely.
Matthew Berry, the milkman, hates Will Levis.
Yeah.
Noted.
That's right.
Gives him draft night disaster part 2.
Yeah. Whose pick is it?
You.
Oh, it's my pick?
Yes.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to take somebody good.
The Will Levis pick really threw you for a loop.
Yeah, I'm going to veer off your train here, and I'm going to actually pick somebody good.
You can't have Mahomes.
How about Zay Flowers?
Okay.
This guy,
a 5'8" receiver that runs in the 4.4s in a run-heavy offense with Lamar Jackson.
Wide receiver 4 behind Devin Duvernay.
I just had to get you back from Will Levis.
It's totally fine, but I think there's a strong argument to be made that Zay Flowers is quickly the number 1 wide receiver for Baltimore. The passing offense is still going to go through Mark Andrews. My expectation here is that the Ravens are not as run-heavy as they have been in years past under Todd Monken.
Can't be,
right? You don't sign a $250 million contract or whatever it is, Lamar got to have him hand off all the time. And maybe he'll take it and run some, but like, I don't know. I just sort of feel like, look, it was 2 years ago that we saw Odell Beckham Jr. We don't know what we're going to get on that. Rashad Bateman has missed 16 games the last 2 years. So this is a bet on talent. This is a bet. And by the way, even still, I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. I think is 31, 32.
Yeah, 31, yep.
So this is more of a bet on talent. And again, pairing a young wide receiver with a young, I don't want to say emerging because Lamar Jackson's already emerged. But like, again, not pairing him. You prefer a guy that's going to be in what we expect to be a very good offense with a good quarterback. And so he's got a very good young quarterback that he can grow with.
Yep. Rashad Bateman might be the weirdest player in fantasy this coming season. Rashad Bateman was a first rounder 2 years ago. And it's just been completely unsighted. I have no idea. Is he going to be the number 1 wide receiver on a top 3 offense in football? Or is he just not going to be cited at all? Right. Is he going to be wide receiver 4 on the depth chart?
It's all over the place. And remember, the Ravens felt good enough about Rashad Bateman a year ago that they traded Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
Because they had Hollywood, and who had been productive in the NFL, and then Bateman gets hurt. But again, given the injury history of Bateman, I feel like they're getting Bateman back. They have Andrews. The fact that they went on and signed Odell Beckham Jr. and drafted Zay Flowers, that tells me this is going to be a much more pass-heavy offense. That they want guys out there. That they're not like, hey, we're not going to run and just have Devin Duvernay block, for Gus Edwards. Like they want to throw the ball. But again, this is more of a bet on talent I like Zay Flowers. I know you were just dogging him, and you hate Zay Flowers.
Apparently,
with a fiery passion, Sorry, Zay Flowers doesn't put his banana in mayonnaise or whatever the hell it is, something weird, whatever.
Mayo and coffee.
Mayo coffee, yeah, whatever it is Will Levis did that made you draft him.
Banana and mayonnaise. All right.
Yeah.
Jay, close us out here for the
By the
first set
way,
of round
rumors no
picks.
one went to Will Levis's birthday party. That's why he dropped.
Tough scene.
Does
Draft day hits again.
Does kind of have that vibe. 15, I'm taking Jonathan Mingo star. You know what I like about Jonathan
You
Mingo?
called him Barkevius yesterday.
I called him Barkevius.
At some point.
Yeah, well, I called him Barkevius. That was intentional, but then it auto-corrected to Barkevius Mango,
Mango.
which was not intentional. I didn't mean Mango. I did mean Barkevius.
I will say this, that'd be a good name for an indie band.
Yeah.
Barkevius Mango.
Barkevius Mango, yeah.
What are you doing tonight? I'm going to go see Barkevius Mango.
Yeah.
Have you heard their last album? It's awesome.
Yeah.
It does sound like
I'm
that.
taking
I'm at the Barkevius
Barkevius'
Mango show.
Yeah, taking Mango's cousin, Jonathan Mingo here. You know what I like about him? 18% of his targets in college, Connor, were on screen passes, which is golden for PPR. I think he could quickly grow into the number one option for Bryce Young in the Frank Reich offense in Carolina. Adam Thielen's not going to be there in 3-4 years, you would expect.
He'll be there in 2.
Yeah. He might not be there this year. Maybe
He might not be there in November.
Yeah. DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall Jr., like these guys.
They all get hurt.
Yeah, and they're fine, but they're not guys who are going to block Jonathan Mingo, who I think will be the number one option for Bryce
And by the way,
Young
and listen,
eventually.
I think this is a great sort of dynasty point, right? Again, both those guys are sort of right there. Mingo is a better pick in terms of landing spot at the moment. Like, there's a clear path to fantasy relevance this year for Mingo than necessarily there's for Zay Flowers. But I don't have your draft ranking, but I bet you had Zay Flowers ranked higher than Jonathan Mingo in your pre-draft ranking. So, again, I went with a talent, you went with opportunity.
Well, I couldn't take your guy because he took him before me.
Yeah, this is also true.
That is, in fact, how the draft works.
I was supposed to say Flowers again?
Oh, yeah. Yes, you should have. You should have figured out a way.
All right.
No trades in this one.
All right, who's your pick, Connor?
I almost took this player at 13, so I'm really happy to get him at 16 right now. And this is opportunity for me. This is Kendre Miller on the Saints. The Alvin Kamara era in New Orleans is almost over.
Right.
We understand they have Jamal Williams there, but Kendre Miller, you look at what he was able to do at TCU as a workhorse runner, and this is what Saints assistant GM Jeff Ireland said about Kendre Miller. He said he has huge upside. It all goes back to height, weight, and speed. Loved his running style. He's a downhill runner, runs with great pad level. Kendre Miller, great contact balance. There's a road where 2 years from now he's their true workhorse running back, and it feels like where they took him in the draft indicates that he ultimately will be that.
Yeah, no issue there. Again, with the
Thanks.
I don't have an issue with it.
What's wrong with you?
What?
Unbelievable. Are you going to have a go at Connor for not taking Bijan at 16?
Should have found a way up.
Should have figured a way to trade up.
16-1 in Dynasty. It cost you like 3 Tyreek Hills.
Listen, I agree with what Connor's saying here. I think there's opportunity for Kendre Miller, not just this year, but for the future. Because not only Alvin Kamara, but Jamal Williams isn't the long-term answer at running back for the New Orleans Saints. And so, Carr's going to be their quarterback for a while. They've got Olave. So drafting a guy that's, has a path to being their starting running back as early as next year, I think makes a ton of sense.
Yep. All right, Barry, you're back on the board here.
Okay. Well, speaking of guys that I thought about taking at the next pick, so I appreciate both of you guys passing on this and making a massive mistake, each of you. Thank you. I'm going to take Marvin Mims. Who can absolutely fly. Look, for everything that Russell Wilson did wrong last year, one thing he actually did do okay is throwing the ball deep. He actually, believe it or not, he was third in deep ball rate last year. And now he gets Marvin Mims. We've talked about sort of talent and opportunity. Love the talent of Marvin Mims. He can absolutely fly. I think he's a fit for what Russell Wilson actually does well. And also, you think about opportunity. There have been a lot of rumors around both Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy potentially could be moved. Whether they get ultimately moved between now and opening day or not, the fact is that it doesn't feel like they're long for Denver, both those guys. Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, both suffered a lot of serious injuries throughout their career. And Marvin Mims, the other thing is he's Sean Payton's guy. Sean Payton's coming in, he has full control of that entire team, and this is the first guy that Sean Payton said, that's who I want.
Yep.
So it's a bet on opportunity, it's a bet on talent and atmosphere. and I can't believe you guys screwed up and let him drop this far.
Yep. No, tying yourself to the 35-year-old Russell Wilson's a great pick by Matthew, I think. No doubt about
Murray
it.
on a depth chart with Tim Patrick, Jerry Judy, Cortland Sutton, and when KJ Hamler returns.
No, it's a great pick by Matthew. Yeah.
Yeah,
Russell
exactly.
Wilson, 35
They're
in November.
all the bastions of health.
Yeah.
Yes.
35 in
Yeah.
November and already bad. No, I like it. I'm going to take.
Denver will be fine in that division.
It's
fine.
You can spin it. I'm tying to whatever 35-year-old Russell Wilson. I don't think he's 35 though. Is he? I think he's 34.
He's sneaky up there.
He's
he
north
turns
of 30.
35 in November.
Okay, so he's 34.
Birthday
so I was
party
right.
that nobody will
I
go
was
to.
right. So I prefer to think of myself as tying Mims to offensive genius Sean Payton.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, I don't know. Michael Thomas was pretty good there for a while. Only the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy
Drew
for a handful of
Brees.
times. Jimmy Graham.
Yeah.
Sean Payton's
Jimmy
never
Graham was
stepped away
really
when
good
things
as well.
get bad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, maybe Drew Brees comes out of retirement. You don't
Yeah,
know.
well, you'd probably be better than Russell Wilson.
At this
All right,
point.
Jay, you're on the clock.
Okay.
Number 18.
Roshan Johnson
right.
is my
Love this one.
pick here.
Finally a pick
Shocked.
he didn't screw up.
Yeah, that's a
Shocked
great pick.
that he's fallen to 18. What I like, and we spoke about him earlier, but I like that he's a good in pass pro, good pass catcher, just a well-rounded running back, and also clear path to being the guy in Chicago. I don't know why he fell as late as he did in the draft, but he's my pick here.
19 for me is I've been waiting for this scenario. I thought he'd fall a little bit, but this far for Cedric Tillman. Wide receiver 4 for me in the draft. Big-bodied wide receiver target in a offense that we've talked about. Cleveland should be throwing the ball more this year. I think they let Donovan Peoples-Jones walk after this season, so you'll look at a future wide receiver core of Amari Cooper, Cedric Tillman with Elijah Moore in the slot. If I can get Tillman this late in round 2, sign me up because he's got great red zone upside and he could be a possession target as well in our PPR format.
Yeah, we talked about that on draft day, just in terms of the opportunity, and we expect the Browns offense to be really, really pass heavy and fantasy friendly, as it will. I'm going to keep with the running back, the wide receiver run, I should say. The wide receiver run. Jaden Reed. Look, anytime you can get a wide receiver for your starting quarterback, the Packers always love to do that.
Yeah.
In the Jordan Love era, at least. Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, now members of your New York Jets and your New York Jets. That's a 33% target share. Yeah, and so both Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs had injury concerns last year. Jaden Reed suddenly becomes, kind of interesting here in Green Bay, and could he potentially be Jordan Love's guy?
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe, possibly not. Who knows?
Kind of interesting, the Jaden Reed story. I like it.
We're pick 20. What do you want from me?
Autobiography.
What do you want from me? We're at pick 20.
Well,
but the fact of the matter is like they used a second-round pick on Reed. Right, and so there's not a lot of competition. Again, Dobbs had nice moments last year, and we really like Watson, but it's kind of wide open there in Green Bay. A 33% target share is no longer there. So Jaden Reed should have an opportunity to contribute immediately.
Yep. No, I don't mind it.
Pick 21, Jay.
Josh Downs is my pick. Again, kind of part 2 to kind of interesting, where he should be. I mean, he should be the primary slot guy for the Colts. He can be a PPR weapon. I like the upside of Anthony Richardson long term, so tying to that. I understand that Richardson is not amazing throwing to the slot. More kind of the talent is in the deep ball, but I just think that there's a lot of opportunity in Indy. I like the talent of Downs, so he was my pick at 21. Again, not the most exciting pick on planet Earth, but he's the guy for me.
It's not a great rookie class, honestly.
No.
Like, again, if you're in a dynasty league, it's more of a depth-filled dynasty league draft of rookies than it is like a bunch of, there's Bijan and then, and we like Gibbs quite a bit,
Yep.
but there's not a lot of like, that guy's going to be a fantasy superstar. There'll always be some guys that pop that are some prizes.
Need the
some
tight
prizes
ends.
here.
The tight ends to really pop. That's the key. Kincaid and Mayo, they're the 2 guys.
Yeah. There's a couple of tight ends that we like there, and we'll see about opportunity here. But like this is a draft. Like if I'm in a dynasty draft and there's no one that I love, like this is a draft where I don't mind trading a pick this year for a pick next year, or for a player that you like. I'll just give you an example. I was in in this dynasty draft that I'm in right now. I didn't love everyone that I had. I was like, this is like late in the 3rd round for my pick. And so I ended up trading my pick to a guy for Wan'Dale Robinson.
Sure.
Like, which I just thought, look, they're all sort of at this point kind of question marks. Like it was in the 3rd round, all the obvious guys were gone. And I thought I'd rather bank on the upside of Wan'Dale Robinson being healthy, in year 2 of the system with Dayball. They still don't really have a slot guy. Richie James moved on. And so Wan'Dale Robinson versus, one of these kind of, not JSN
They're dart
types.
throws right
Dart
now.
throws,
Yeah, they're dart throws right now. All right, my final pick here in our rookie mock draft in round 2, pick 22. I'll take Tyjae Spears, right? I don't know how long Derrick Henry is going to be the guy in Tennessee, and
Neither does Derek.
Yeah, neither does Derrick Henry, and the internet
Might
too.
be over already.
Yeah, but Tyjae Spears, he doesn't necessarily have that workhorse build, but he was used like one for Tulane, and a good pass. At a minimum, you're getting a good pass catcher.
Yeah.
Really good off swing passes, really good off those dump passes, running in the open field. I think Spears, at minimum, is one Henry injury away from a pretty big role. So he's somebody that should be taken in the first 2 rounds when you're doing those running back dart throws.
Yeah, Spears is really interesting, especially because you think about the fact that they used I want to say, did they use a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick on Haskins last year?
Yeah.
On Hassan
I think
Haskins?
it was 3rd.
Was it a 3rd?
But Malik Willis just burning picks from last year's draft already.
Well, but
guys you never hear of again.
But the point is there's a new regime in Tennessee. There's a new general manager, and he basically is just like, I don't like they used a pretty high pick on Spears, and so, again, they had some other guys there behind Derrick Henry, and they don't seem to love who they have. Same thing. They had a backup. They, in theory, had a backup quarterback for Ryan Tannehill, and they didn't,
The Willis Haskins era just didn't really ignite.
Didn't ignite in Tennessee.
No.
For the Titans.
That's right. We're going to a new era. The Levis Spears
not
era.
what people were hoping.
No, it's not the ticket.
Barry, your last pick of our mock draft here.
Yeah, well, you guys mentioned Kincaid, you mentioned Mayer, but how about Sam Laporta? I'm going to go tight end once again here for team 20. I guess the second pick, second to last pick at pick 23. Before he was traded, T.J. Hawkinson had an almost 20% target share for the Detroit Lions. And then you think about sort of how they use the tight end position post T.J. Hawkinson leaving the team. And there was one of the Zylstra brothers had a 3-touchdown game. Like who's the other guy?
Was it Brock Wright?
Brock Wright, thank you very much.
That was the touchdown against our Jets.
Yeah, exactly. Brock Wright.
That man ended our season. Thanks for bringing him up.
Brock Wright. But my point is that Ben Johnson likes to use the tight end, and he had a couple of, just guys.
Yep.
And now they go out and get Sam Laporta, who I think should be, if not immediately, eventually will be kind of the T.J. Hawkinson of that offense. Yeah. And so, again, he'd probably go higher in tight end premium leagues, but we do think tight end is a pretty good position this year in this draft.
Yep. Laporta more athletic than anyone they've had at the position, so a lot of excitement. Jay, you got the last pick of this one.
Yep, haven't taken a quarterback yet, so I will now. Hendon Hooker is the last pick of the draft.
Back-to-back
For me,
Lions.
I think he has, he was favored to be a first-round pick going into the draft. He ends up falling to 68 in the Lions. Not the best landing spot in the world. You can see Barry kind of gearing up for his little shots that he's going to take. But I like the rushing upside. I like the fantasy profile of his skill set. Also, I'm not convinced that Jared Goff is going to be the guy forever there.
I know. I don't mind the pick at all, and I actually think it's a great landing spot. No, seriously, the Lions have one of the best offensive lines in football.
Yep.
And it's important. We'll see how long they keep him there, but I think they have one of the most creative play callers in Ben Johnson as their offense coordinator. Again, he was a hot coaching candidate this past year. I think if the Lions have the success everyone's expecting, he'll once again be a coaching candidate, but a hot coaching candidate. But the fact of the matter is that it's a pretty good landing spot. It's a good organization that's on the way up. They obviously, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, they'll get Jaxon Williams back, Sam Laporta. All of a sudden, there's some weapons for Hooker when he becomes the starting quarterback of the Detroit Lions.
That's a wrap for us.
Yeah.
Next
You
week,
know what it
we are
means?
doing your positional rankings.
We're going to do my positional rankings, my top players at every position, post-draft, post-free agency, everything sort of figure it out. It's obviously going to move as we continue to get through August, but go towards August. But we'll have all of that for you right here. My Dynasty rookie ranks and my top 100, they're all out now on NBCSportsEdge.com, rotoworld.com. Of course, I'm a company man. Look, guys, it's closing time. I mean, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.